Hello everybody to today's CKA lab. In this lab, we're going to create a deployment that uses an external load balancer, and we're going to test it out by putting an nginx pod behind it, and we should be able to hit it from anywhere online and get to it. All right, so let's get started. So to do this, there's some requirements. We're going to use GKA load cluster. I have a cluster with 3 nodes, because to create it, I cannot do a load balancer with Minikube on my local host, so that's why. The next thing, we're going to define some ports. Port for the external load balancer is going to be 80, and the target port will be 80 as well, because that's the port nginx listens on. And then we're going to verify it works by hitting it on our browser. All right, so let's get started with the coding. First thing, we're going to create an nginx pod with a label app equals web server. So let's start with that. Let's do, okay, first of all, let's make sure I have, yep, I'm on the Google cluster. All right, so now let's run. Let's just say n1 is the name, image equals nginx, and -l, I believe, is the label, option for label. -l equals, and let's actually, before I do that, let's look at the requirements again. It should be app equals web server. Okay, so let's try and do that. That app equals web server. Web server. Okay, get pod. Continue creating. Running now. Next thing we want to do, make sure it has the right label. I believe the command option for that is show label or labels. Yeah, app equals web server. All right, so that's there. Now let's look at the requirements one more time. The next thing we need to do, we need to create a deployment of load balancer type. So to do this, we're just going to go to Kubernetes documentation, type in external load balancer, and we'll get to this page. I'll put a link to that in the documentation. And load balancer. Yep. I'll put a link to this in the description so you know where to go. But literally, you go to kubernetes.io website and search for load balancer, and you'll get there. All right, and I'm going to copy paste this code that they gave us. All right, via.yaml. That's the code for the deployment that creates load balancer, external load balancer. In the requirement, they didn't say any name, so it doesn't really matter. Then we can just say foo deploy. Selector. This is where it has to match the pod. Web server. Ports. Like we said, the external port would be 80. The target port, which is basically a backend port on the nginx, is 80. Type equals load balancer, and that should do the trick. Let's see. Okay, apply. -f a.yaml. All right. Let's see how that went. Oh, the service. That's not going to work. Okay, get service. Okay, we have a service. The IP is in there. That's a little bit confusing for me because I thought the deployment, I guess, oh, yeah, it's the service that is up type load balancer, not the deployment. Now, my question to myself is, do I not need a deployment for this? I guess service can actually map to a pod. Let's see, depending on labels. Let's do k describe service foo deploy. That's kind of a misnomer, but okay, whatever. App equals web server, so that might do the trick. Port is 80, target port 80. That's all good. And this IP address. I should be able to hit that on the browser. Yeah, and I'll go to nginx. So you can't see it because I didn't share my Chrome when I first started recording. So I should be able to do a curl to this. You see, if we curl to the IP address external over here, you get the default nginx web page. All right, so that means our service works. So now what I need to do though, I need to clarify something to you folks because my requirements were wrong. This should be, oh, there's a service. Yeah, it's a service. So I spoke wrong. I wrote it correctly. So it was the service of type load balancer that creates the load balancer automatically in GKE, and it forwards traffic to backend to port 80. And because the service has a label, so let me show you the YAML file one more time. So this is a service of external of load balancer type, and it matches any pod that has this label, which in our case would be the pod that we ran to begin with, kget pod, kget pod -- show labels. All right. Now we can undo this. We can see we can make it break. So I want to show you that. So let's kill that pod. K delete pod n1, and the pod is now gone. Now if I do a curl, it should fail because the pod is not serving the page anymore behind the load balancer. Let's do that. Yep, failed to connect. So you get the idea. All right, so service has a selector that selects pod based on the label. Because nginx pod was running with the same label, it worked. When I killed the pod, there was no pod to service the request. It failed. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like and subscribe. That helps me with the YouTube's algorithm. And I will see you in the next CKA exam practice video.